Just a few announcements with the budget just being passed, $33.997 billion for this year. It's an increase of $596 million, 1.8%. The good thing is there's no new taxes or fees in this budget at all. The things we wanted to share with you, the commissioners and the city leaders, something we worked on, but it was bipartisan. Frank, myself, Representative Sankey, Senator Langerhold was working on the KOZ, which was important. They made changes to that. Frank's going to talk on that. Representative Bird's going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit about the pre-K through 12 education, the amount of monies that were afforded towards public education, the increases that we were able to get into the budget this year, and the monies that also went into the career and technical schools. So without bogging it down, it's going to be pretty much free-floating here. Wayne's also is going to discuss some of this stuff with us along with the emissions testing. I know I've been getting a lot of calls on it here, and so he can let us know where that's at too. So Frank, if you want to go.
So several years back, we had talked about when the Crescent Prison had closed, about putting a KOZ in that area. So this is something I have been pushing for a long time. And in this year's budget, the result of all of us working together, Cambria County was able to negotiate into the tax code bill an opportunity for a KOZ. The special KOZ provisions that allows, now we're allowed to do under 10-acre parcels. So what does that mean for a place like the city of Johnstown or a place like Carrolltown? You actually could put a KOZ where a building sits. It could be as small as a plot of land that a specific building is sitting on. That could be demolished and a new business could be put in there. So this is really big deal for Cambria County because it opens the door for us. It puts us in the game. Now we're able to compete against counties that have economic incentives. Look, we're elected officials here, we're government officials. We don't create jobs. The government does not create jobs. What we do is create an environment where businesses can grow and succeed. And that's what we've done here. By working together, we were able to put this language in and create the environment necessary for businesses in Cambria County and businesses outside of Pennsylvania. So when they're looking to move into our area, Cambria County is going to be at the top of the list because we're able to provide certain tax incentives that will entice them to come here. Look, you saw the articles recently. Johnstown's the 7th poorest in the United States. The 7th poorest city in the United States. We have to try something. And this KOZ is the game changer that's going to help our region. And, you know, everyone here played a role in making that happen. And there's also a certain incentive in there that it has to, here's how a KOZ works. We designate an area. The local government, county government, and state government must all agree to the tax provisions provided. Then it has to be approved by DCED. Now, if it is not approved by DCED, this was a provision put in the Senate that if it's not approved, the equal number or the equal value of jobs and the total dollar amount that would have been created by that business coming in, the state would now have to come up with a plan, an economic development plan equal to that dollar amount and the jobs created. So there's no loss here for us. This is going to be a win-win. We all must work together and we must get to work identifying the areas that we need in the KOZ zone and identifying the business opportunities outside of Pennsylvania that are looking to move here. And I'm willing to work with everybody. I'm sure everyone up here is willing to work with the county and local governments to make this happen and get the most out of this. Thank you.
Do we entertain any questions, or you can wait till the end? We'll at the end, we'll take any questions you may have.
Good afternoon. This was my third budget, and I said this on my floor remarks on the floor of the Senate, that the first budget that I voted on, we faced a $1.6 billion deficit. So we were in a much different position this year than we were in years past. We had approximately $800 million in a surplus, and that's through just really sound fiscal policies, being able to push back on spending and watch and enact some economic policies, which really were able to put us in that position. And also, I mean, the national economy plays a big role in that. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that this surplus isn't going to be here every year, and not just go and spend down to zero. So we were able to set aside $300 million to deposit in the rainy day fund, which was tremendous. Previously, I think we had maybe $20 million of a reserve. So being able to do all this, accomplish these things, and what I'm going to speak of is a tremendous budget, and I was proud to support it and proud to vote for it. Tom's going to talk about the education, but as chairman of the Senate Education Committee, $160 million increase in basic ed, increase in community and schools, which will impact Johnstown. We've had a hearing for the Senate Education Committee for the communities and schools, and that program is working. It's going to continue to work. It serves as kind of a pilot program for the state. So we're proud to be able to increase money for that. Penn Highlands, that was one of my top priorities in getting funding. We were able to secure $500,000 in funding for Penn Highlands, and then also an additional step up of $73,000. That will be a recurring provision each year. So a total of about $573,000 to Penn Highlands, which will go to help them continue to do the work that they're doing. Agriculture. In February, the governor's budget proposed a cut in agriculture of $4 million. And my district being 3 counties, Clearfield, Cambria, Bedford County, that's the one constant, that's the one industry that binds my district together. And it's the #1 industry in the Commonwealth, let's face it. So we were able to go from a $4 million decrease in funding to a $19 million increase. So that's a $23 million swing that we're able to give. It's been long overdue that agriculture, I said, everyone is affected by agriculture, whether it's the farmlands in your district that you drive or the food on your dinner table. We're all touched by that. So we were pleased to be able to secure additional funding for agriculture. Part of that too, there was a package of bills that the governor just signed. You may have seen dealing with agriculture. One bill I was proud to have was a farm width bill to increase the allowable width for farm equipment on the roads. And that came right out of one of these, we'll be going to them now here, now that we're home, these legislative farm tours, and listening and talking to the farmers and hearing what their issues. And that came directly from a legislative farm tour about 2 years ago. I was talking to some individuals, and they said they had a giant combine out, and just said, well, if we wanted to move that even across our field, across the road, we could be cited for that because the only allowable width is 16 feet. So we worked with PennDOT, we worked with the Farm Bureau, we worked with the governor's office to identify how can we craft legislation, because there were some concerns, PennDOT as well, safety concerns, but I'm proud to report that we were able to increase the farm width from 16 to 18 feet, and the governor signed that into law on Monday. So I was very pleased to have that piece of legislation, and that will go to directly help our farms and our agriculture. Community or career and tech schools getting additional funding, and also talk about emissions, which we passed that out of the Senate. It's going to the House. I don't know if you guys will go back early, maybe like next week or so, if there's any plans to take that up. But no, we were able to hold hearings, and that's something I've been working on, and that's something that I hear. I can't go to the grocery store or any one of my kids' activities without hearing that. We passed that. We had a hearing in Latrobe, the Senate Transportation Committee, and took testimony, and then we were able to put together a package of bills that passed the Senate and is going to the House. The one bill that I have is to remove Cambria County from the emissions requirement. In addition, there's 7 counties total. So what we did, we passed a Senate resolution to do a study, the Joint State Government Commission, to do a study on the impact of the emissions. And they came back and said, well, the directive was from the Senate, we want you to examine the financial economic impact of removing these counties, and how can we do it in compliance with the Clean Air Act, with the EPA, so that we don't lose federal funding, because obviously we don't want to eliminate emissions but then lose millions of dollars in highway funding. So We directed them to do that. They came back and said, well, we don't think that Cambria should come off, so we're just gonna talk about the Clean Air Act. And I was like, okay, so that's not what we directed you to do. So then we sent another terse letter to them saying, please do your job that we told you to do. And then they came back, analyzed it, and Cambria was one of 7 counties that could be removed from emissions. So then we put that into legislation, passed the Senate. So we're waiting on that. So I'm hopeful that that will happen. That's what I said. That's what gives politicians a bad name. Like, we put a tax. Well, you don't ever hear them repealing taxes. So I mean, Cambria County has worked hard to attain the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. They do that. It's time to reward them for that. One other thing that we're working on, and it didn't get it to this budget cycle, but it is, I'm hopeful that it will get out of committee here and we can maybe take it up in the fall, is my proposal for the Johnstown flood tax, to bring a portion of that money back to Act 47 distressed municipalities. And I have a lot more support going forward here. That committee changed chairman, and Tom Killian now is the chair of that committee that's handling that bill, and he represents the city of Chester, which, you know, is having economic issues. So he's expressed an interest in possibly running that bill, and hopefully we can, you know, meet and get that bill run in the fall. And what that would do is the flood tax of after the 1936 flood, everything sold malt beverages goes to was supposed to go to the city of Johnstown. Now it all goes to the general fund, and it's increased over the years. We want to take just a portion of that money and give it to Act 47 distressed municipalities, which can have a very real impact. And I know I've talked with the mayor at length about this, and I know that those are real dollars that can do some real good. So again, happy to vote for this budget. Hope I didn't steal too much of your thunder, Tommy. We saved the best for last. Representative Sankey.
Oh, boy. I'm a pretty small guy, so they usually don't let me back clean up, but I'll give it a whirl. I'm going to echo some of everybody else's points. Representative Burns been here the longest. I will tell you, it was just a few short years ago that we were sitting looking at structural deficits in the billions of dollars, a couple $1 billion, and our options were, here's going to be the tax increases. Which ones are we going to vote for? Well, we survived, and this budget didn't have gimmicks. It didn't have one-time transfers of money. This budget had revenue excess, and much as we'd like to give everybody their money back, we do need to save. And now our final numbers have come in, that it'll be over $300 million in the rainy day fund. And last year's budget was $22 million that we put in the rainy day fund, and we thought that was remarkable because it had been that many years since we actually put money in a rainy day fund. Without question, in my 7 budgets, and I've been through budgets with Republican administrations and Democrat administrations, this budget by no means is perfect. Without question, the best budget I've ever voted for. That's probably why everybody up here didn't have any problems voting for it. In terms of the KOZs that Rep. Burns talked about a little bit, I'm fortunate enough to represent some of Clearfield and Cambria County, so Clearfield County was included in a KOZ as well. And again, the same thing, they're not perfect, but we need to do something to help these areas. And Johnstown needs help, Cambria County needs help, Clearfield County needs help, and we're willing to listen, and we've got to do something different than what we've always done. And any opportunity we can have to have monies and opportunities to invite businesses to come to our communities and develop, we have to support that. So back to education, I believe our increase was $160 million in the line item for basic education funding, another $50 million for special education. I know there's Wayne could correct me, I think it's $25 million increase for safety grants. Is it 25? Yeah. Increase for the safety grant schools. My district's pretty rural, so I represent part of 11 school districts. And when you have that many school districts who are hold harmless districts, those administrations, those school boards are fighting tooth and nail to stay open. And the more investment we can get from state dollars, our tax base is dwindling in a lot of these small, what we consider single A school districts. We don't want them to go away. We want those communities to stay, because a lot of these small communities, the school district and the school itself is the center of the community. So anytime that we can go to Harrisburg and get state money to come back to our schools is a positive for us. And I stand behind that. All in all, all joking aside, this is the best budget we've ever voted for. And going from where we were to where we are today, I hope it stays this way forever. And good, bad, or indifferent, this is economics coming from the federal level. It's President Trump's economy, and he's always going to claim it, but we're benefiting from this. And we've seen such large increases in our sales tax because consumer confidence is finally there. We're seeing businesses invest. We're seeing people who are confident in spending money and making decisions. And I just hope every budget's this way. We've had some really long budget cycles, and it wasn't that many years ago that, what were we, Frank? We were into November, December before we had it. And when you have school districts and county services that are borrowing money, and I'm sure the commissioners are thankful the budget's done on time, we had some tough years. And we were all prepared to go back to Harrisburg, but we couldn't get along to get 102 votes out of the House and 26 out of the Senate and the governor to sign it. Hopefully those days are behind us because this is without question the best budget I've ever voted for. So I'll give it back to Jim, and I'm ready for any questions anybody may have. So thank you for your time.
I was just open up. I think you can hear us all well enough without being at the microphone, right?
The mic.
Do you need the mic?
Yeah.
I need the mic. Yeah. Well, we'll jump up as we have the answers. Then we'll go ahead and start taking some questions.
The tax of the Pennsylvania, or the Johnstown flood tax, I would encourage you also to make that inclusive of those that are getting out of Act 47 as a crutch to be able to help them continue to stay out of, we're scheduled to get out of Act 47 and 21. But that doesn't mean the sustainability of staying out of it. So I'd encourage you to make that inclusive of maybe a span of 3 or 5 years for those that are out of Act 47 or getting out of Act 47.
We can look at that.
And I understand it was like a $400 million PLCB pot. Is that close?
The total on the percent that we want to take, I don't know those figures off the top of my head. If you want to.
The Johnstown flood tax is 18%. Okay, and then the PLCB has a 30% markup. So it's essentially a tax, and then plus the sales tax. So you have a 54% tax on malt beverages. 30 for, we like to say artificial. 30 for the PLCB, 18 for the Johnstown flood tax, and 6% sales tax. So there's a 54% tax, but no, it's not coming back to you.
So we're looking at taking a percentage of that then
Of the
to allocate for.
Yeah, I think it was 3%, whatever it equated to. I could get you those numbers, but it could be significant dollars.
Is there an approximate timeframe for the KOZ approvals and just the process itself as to where we can help and where we can all work together as far as that percent?
So the application, it's a single application. So you have to identify all of the properties you want in the KOZ at one time. And it's October of 2020. So we have a little over a year to get all that together. The problem we're going to be faced with is there's some people that may want to move here before we can get the application done. And we're going to have to work on those timelines. So the sooner we can get everybody together and the sooner we can start identifying the properties that we would like to be included, there's a long process with DCED to make this a reality, and there's a process that the local governments have to go through. But the sooner we can get it done, obviously the better. And then the more we can put the open for business sign on Cambria County.
Is there a place where the process is in place currently that we can just take a look and see what we need to do to move?
Yeah, there's other areas. If you go to DCED's website, it identifies all of them, and it lays out the step-by-step process that, what all's included in the KOZ zone. Again, I can't reiterate enough, this puts us in the game. If a company's looking to move from out of state into Pennsylvania, they're looking at the bottom line. They're looking at where can I make the most money? And sometimes we have different resources, but this will give us the competitive advantage that other places do not have. Cambria and Clearfield counties will be on the map once again.
I just have one question. I want to thank you guys for all the good work that you're doing, working together. But one question I have for you is the voting machines. What's the status? Are we going to have it? Does the law, was it Steen versus somebody which put this into action? Is the county's going to receive any
There was 90 million.
We'll go one at a time here, because I don't, I can't check my email to see if the governor actually signed it. So we had multiple bills in the election code to come out as the last minute as budget time goes. I believe the governor's ask initially was 75 million, but we put 15 million more in, and that was an ask from a lot of us in the rural areas. And hey, you guys have a lot of voting precincts here, and Clearfield the same way. We don't want to get to a point where this is mandated to have new machines. Without that money in there, I don't know how we go about it. I don't know how we raise the taxes. Oh, and more importantly than anything, I don't want to put the commissioners in the spot, Clearfield or Cambria, to say, well, we don't have that many voters at XY precinct. We're just going to merge them together, because we're going to start creating rifts by doing that. I can't confirm if he signed it or not yet. We should probably check on that. Let's hope he did. Because there was a lot of reform. Another part of that election code was to expand the period for absentee voting. So, and that was kind of a lot of our members in the military. That was something they spoke on about different times where they were literally deployed and were having trouble getting their absentee in. So we extended that period. There were several reforms, Republican and Democrat, House and Senate, that were merged into this election code bill. But the biggest thing for me, and I can't speak as much for Cambria, I assume you're close, but for Clearfield, it was non-starter unless we can get some money appropriated for those voting machines. But I know 90 million was the dollar amount that we put in.
Let me ask you this then, and Wayne being a lawyer, it's certified, right? I mean, if you do not put them in place, then your election's not certified, according to the law, right?
That's what it says, and I don't know how we would get to that point. I mean, our machines aren't, they have to be certified now, but Clearfield doesn't use paper machines. I know Indiana County still has a paper ballot. Different ones have different machines, but they all have to be certified, but they need to be upgraded and they need to be paid for. And, we can get into a longer debate on the vendors that provide these things, because it doesn't seem like it's that open of a bid process. I feel like they could be made, but election security is important. And if that's the cost of doing it, I don't know how much. Truthfully, over 67 counties, I don't know how far 90 million goes. I know it was 15 million more than the governor asked, and our whip explained to us there was parts of the election code I wasn't necessarily gung ho about.
It hasn't been signed yet. It's still presented to the governor.
Okay.
The election code's not been signed yet.
That's a senator. He can make quick text and get that information right now. But we need it. And however that's dispersed, I don't know. But our whip explained to me that, hey, we need to support this because you're from Clearfield County, and I know, and he's from Bellefonte. He said, I know darn well that you guys need this extra money. So let's hope he signs it and see how this gets dispersed.
On top of with DJ, you said about the Clearfield County Commissioners don't have money to pay for it. We don't have money to pay for it either, but we moved ahead. We're going through that process because it was a mandate.
Yes.
So we're doing it, and BJ brings up a great thing. And there's counties that updated their machines not so long ago, and they got to update them again because the companies they were dealing with, they're not certified.
No longer vendor.
Yeah, or probably
Yeah.
they were saying that. So I guess there's more to come on that.
Yeah.
One other question too, on the KOZs, maybe Frank, how do you make it more inviting? Like, say I'm from Richland, and I have a lot of businesses there, and is it fair to the business that came there and are established to give tax breaks to a new person coming in I mean, how do you make that where those businesses aren't offended by it? Because I came here and I had to pay taxes from the get-go, where a new business comes in, you give them tax breaks.
Well, again, the locals are going to control this. So you're going to decide which parcels of land that you want to be included.
So the local government doesn't want it there, that's not going to go there.
Correct. And there's a long process, but typically this is for underdeveloped areas, blighted areas, so that they come in and rip buildings down and put something new up, and they get a tax incentive for doing it. That's how the program is supposed to work. And it's up to the local municipalities and county government to make sure that's how it operates. There could be a situation where that happens, I'm sure, but it's up to us to be prudent and identify the proper areas to be included. And to the voting machines, the governor didn't sign anything yet. You guys still have a chance to call the governor's office and voice your concerns directly to the governor. Because I don't know if he doesn't sign this. I don't know where the money comes from in such a short period of time to make this happen and for you to get reimbursed since you've already moved forward with it. So I encourage you to reach out to the governor's office.
Like you said, it's mandated, you have to move it forward. I mean, whether you have the money or you don't, it's mandated.
So if I were the county, if I were you, I would be calling the governor's office today and saying, we need the money to pay for your unfunded mandate.
Wayne, if I might ask a question in regard to Penn Highlands, the dollars that are additional, is that just like a one-year shot, or is that for the formula that they would be benefited by over the next number of years?
Right, the total dollar increase is about 573,000. Of that, 500,000 is a one-time allocation. The 73,000 represents an increase in the funding formula for Penn Highlands going forward, which will occur each year.
Okay, so that would stay with it?
Correct.
That increase, okay,
Yep.
good. I know that's what, they've been lobbying for.
Right.
We talked to them every several months, and that's something that, continually comes up in the conversation.
On that note, one other area, school safety. I serve on the PCCD Commission for School Safety, and if you remember last year, they allocated $60 million for school safety projects, and of that $60 million, every school district within the Commonwealth received, there was a subchapter A, subchapter B. The subchapter A part was $25,000 that they would receive if they just submitted the application, and then there was a competitive grant process that awarded some dollars. And back in the governor's address, they requested to cut that back to $45 million. We were able to increase that back to $60 million for the school safety grants, and also kind of tweak the language a little bit to increase that subchapter A, a guarantee of $25,000, and then kind of a sliding scale that could go up to about $40,000 or $45,000 depending on your population, or how many students you had. And then on the competitive grant process, we changed the language as well to allow partial funding, because what we did prior was it was all or nothing. So there were school districts that got everything they requested, and if they didn't, they got zero. And originally we moved, there was a proposal to allocate those dollars just across the board per pupil, and we kind of advocated against that, and I did especially. I said, if we do that, we're going to lose out here in our area, because all that money is going to go east or west to Philly or Pittsburgh, because they've got the population. So, but seeing that some of that money went all or nothing, being able to partially fund that will help in this next round. It's not an exact science. We're going to continue to work through that, but those are dollars that help tremendously, for school safety. So we were proud to be able to put that in as well.
When you say school safety, I'm involved in some of that. What they've used a lot of that money for certain school districts is mental health services, which is very proactive instead of just having a guard and locks on the doors,
Right.
et cetera. So we've seen a number of schools that are using that to have a therapist available to all kids within the school district.
Right.
So it's been very positive.
And I believe that that's the number one issue that when I got appointed to the PCCD Commission, I pulled all the superintendents in the district down and I said, you're here, you deal with it every day. What do we need to do? Is it, hard and fast locks or what? And the overwhelming majority said mental health. We just don't have enough guidance counselors. We don't have enough social workers to be able to address that, to treat the root problem of the children. So yeah, a lot of those dollars were allocated for those purposes, and I think they'll continue to be. And if we can continue to fund that program going forward, I think it will continue to have a tremendous impact for our students.
I think we got to everybody. We're going to wrap things up here. Again, I want to thank these guys for coming here. Representative Burns has been an asset to me, working next to me and with me on projects. We're very concerned and very involved with what's going on in this district and in his district. Representative Sankey for his leadership as a freshman. Man, I reach to everybody. I think some of you out there know that too. I'm asking, I'm grasping, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. It's nice having Senator Langerholk, right up the road, and I can reach out to him on a regular basis. So I'm sure they're all three are tired of hearing from me, but give me some time, guys, and I'll catch on. We want to thank you guys for coming out today to listen to what we had to present to you, and hopefully we can keep this open dialogue going as we move forward. I want to thank you all. Thank you.